What would you do if time and money were not an issue? What would you do? What would you do with all that time? What would you do with all that money? Something I was thinking about before coming into this video is how I would buy all the books that are in my virtual drive that I've downloaded. I'd purchase all of them and create a physical bookshelf where it has all the books that I can easily just pull out and read. And if I had all the time in the world, I would read a book a week. This will count as a sound check, but please stick around. Sound check. So hi there and welcome to my YouTube channel. The name is Kharata Khitane Salalidi. I'm so excited to be here yet again on a beautiful Tuesday catch-up video for Monday, because this girlie decided to choose sleep one over content creation. But welcome to the video. If you are new here, my name is Kharata Khitane Salalidi, and I am a faith-based content creator, and I create content around productivity and purpose, and particularly through our Monday videos. We are reading, and I set up a virtual book club that I'd want for you to join. And if you're a returning subscriber and been contemplating joining, please do click on the link. I will put it in the description box for you to register and be part of the journey. Excitingly, today, as our check-in, I want to share this before we get into the last part of the book we've been reading. So for today's check-in, what I wanted to share, and this is in reference to what I shared in the opening video for the sound check, something I've been contemplating over the years is doing a 52 week reading challenge where I read a book every week, right? And having had come out of my 10-month detox, something that has been on my heart is what am I replacing that time that I had? Because truly I hadn't substituted social media with anything. So my time was filled with Netflix, or I guess reading here and there, and in the past few months being a mother fully, right? But then now that my energy is coming back, something that I've decided to do to fill the gap and stop me from doom scrolling is to start reading a book a week. And today, officially, launching a 52-week reading challenge. So you will see a bit of a shift in our Monday videos where I will be reviewing a book every single week. And it'll allow me to kind of just do a talking head video where I share my thoughts on this specific book. And I like how we did Think and Grow Rich in terms of making it a teaching series and reflective series. And that same format will remain for all of the books that we are going to read. So in the next few weeks, in the next 52 weeks, we are going to be reading books that relate to our finances, books that relate to our emotions, and books that relate to spirituality. And why is that the case? I want to be honest and say there's so many books that are in my reading wish list, and with this particular challenge, it's going to allow me to actually get to a place where I read and reflect on the books that I've been meaning to read all these years. So I don't know about you, but there's these popular titles that if you go to any bookstore, you'll probably find, right? Have you read them? Have you used them to reflect on your life? I haven't. So this girlie is going to be reading 52 books in the next 52 weeks. And really, all these books will be along the lines of self-help. So if you are looking to get into reading these popular titles with me, please jump on and check my community tile where I will put a list of all the selected books that ChatGPT helped me to find that we are going to be reading. And the first book that I'm going to be starting us off with is The Power of Now. And I was able to actually find the audio clip or the audio full book on YouTube. So there will be it will be added into the playlist as well. So I'm realizing that my battery is low. But you know, Samsung Android is very reliable in terms of battery. So I am going to jump into the video without wasting any time. And I'm just going to go through each of the remaining chapters and kind of just speak to them, not necessarily share too much from the book. And if you haven't read the book, you can find the full audio clip under this series, and you can just jump to the chapters that I'm reviewing today and have a listen to them, which is what I did. So I had to take a call. My grandma called. I love calls with my grandma because we get to check in. She tells me about a day. I tell her about a day. We had a very long night. My husband had a terrible toothache, so we hardly slept. But yeah, coming back to the video, like I said, we're starting a challenge. Starting today, I am going to be reading. I'm done with Think and Grow Rich, so I'm going to be reading from the list. And the first book that we're going to be reading is The Power of Now. Right? The Power of Now. Instead of doom scrolling, we're going to be scrolling through ZBooks. And like I shared, the site that I use to get free books is oceanofpdf.com. So we are going to be reading soft copies until further notice, until the bank account allows us to buy all of those books and put them in the bookshelf. Yeah, it took a lot of restraint because I wanted to actually put a reminder to say, go buy The Power of Now for when I finally get paid. But a part of me was like, no, just read soft copies, my gal. But anyways, let's get into the video. So in usual fashion, if you're a returning subscriber, these sessions are dedicated to us reflecting on our lived experience. These are guided reflection sessions over and above us reading together. So I am going to be putting the questions or the reflection question and call to action for the book over here. And this is going to be the rhythm for all the books that we're going to read as we go along week by week, right? So today we are going to be reflecting on chapter 12 to chapter 15. Chapter 12 to chapter 15. So I'm just going to read in usual fashion. I don't have the phone that I usually use, so I'm going to be facing this way. I'm going to be reading from my MacBook. And and then come back to reflect. So chapter 12 is on the subconscious mind, and I will put the questions here. I'm going to do this so that I know to come here when I'm editing. But yeah, so it says the subconscious mind. In this chapter, Hill presents the subconscious mind as a powerful, ever-active spiritual and psychological medium that bridges the gap between our deepest desires and the reality we eventually create. He describes it as a fertile soil that accepts every thought, whether intentional or careless, and begins to translate those thoughts into actions, habits, opportunities, and ultimately results. Hill emphasizes that the subconscious mind does not filter, reason, or reject. Instead, it absorbs and responds to emotionalized thoughts with astonishing precision. Because of this, he insists on feeding the subconscious a steady stream of purpose-filled ideas supported by faith, desire, gratitude, and repetition. When properly directed, the subconscious mind becomes the silent architect of achievement, aligning circumstances, people, and resources to bring your dominant intentions to form. End of chapter 12. So from chapter 12, my favorite thing that stood out for me in this chapter was something that Napoleon Hill said about prayer. To say that one day in the future, prayer is going to be part of the schooling curriculum where people or students are taught how to pray as a way of tapping into the subconscious mind, right? Tapping into, he described it as the infinite, message just popped up on my phone. Infinite, how does he describe God? Infinite being, but in this case, God, right? For me, the infinite being. But something that he said was about prayer that I felt was speaking to me was how when we approach prayer, and he's talked about prayer as a way of communicating these things that you want with the infinite being, but in our case, God. He'd say that prayer, we approach our prayers with fear and instead of faith. And in this chapter, actually, he talks to two types of emotions, which are positive and negative emotions that feed our subconscious, right? The feelings that we come into the subconscious, I'd say that we come into the subconscious carrying, if I should say, right? And he noted that the subconscious mind feeds or listens more to the negative emotions more than it does the positive emotions, which take more work. But going back to the thought on prayer, he said that we go into our prayers fearfully, and the subconscious mind catches the fearful thought concerning what it is you're praying for. So if it is you're praying for God to make a provision for something, and you're coming towards this particular prayer with fear that you're not going to get it, or it's an impossible thing to get, the subconscious mind is listening. So this is how he describes it, to say it's forever listening. So whatever thing, even as you're going through the day, that whatever thoughts you have, the emotions that you have as you go about the day show you how you're perceiving and what you're thinking about the particular thing. So your emotions in this case from this chapter, what I'm picking, is there a signal to say this is how you are thinking about this particular thing. Change your perspective, change the frequency of your thoughts so that you're more conscious about what you're feeding your subconscious mind. And he actually noted, like, to go back to one thing that you'd pray for, and I thought about it for me to say most of the things that I pray for that come to pass were tied to me having big faith concerning those things. And not to say that the things that we pray for, God won't answer if you do have faith. That is actually a statement, because he might sometimes not answer. It might be a no. But I think for the things that actually came to pass when I prayed, there was big faith that was tied to that particular prayer, I will be honest. And some of the things that haven't happened yet, I'd realize that even as I pray, and for some I haven't even prayed for, there's a bit of fear that I tied to that particular thing. So something to think about, and I will share the reflection question here so that we come back to both of us to reflect on. So moving on to chapter 13, because my battery is a bit low. So moving on to chapter 13 is on the brain. Reading and you're hearing the summary says, Hill describes the brain as a highly sensitive instrument designed to generate, transmit, and receive thought frequencies. He portrays it almost like a spiritual and energetic broadcasting station, one that becomes more powerful when stimulated by strong emotions such as love, faith, and sexual energy. According to Hill, the brain does far more than process information. It also picks up emissions, ideas, and inspirations from sources beyond ordinary reasoning. He suggests that when the mind is intensely focused on a definite purpose, the mind heightens its vibrational rate, enabling greater creativity, intuition, and even what he describes as cosmic communication. In this state, the brain becomes a magnet for solutions, insights, and opportunities that align with one's burning desire. I'm actually going to just pause here quickly and check my messages, because I am expecting my mom to come through with some drinkable yogurt for my husband. So I'll be back. I will say though that the Android battery is amazing, because of all the clips that I've done so far, it only took 2%. So we're good. But in thinking about the brain, I think the biggest thing for me going into 2026 is being a conscious consumer in terms of what I feed my brain, and hence the 52-week reading challenge that we're going to be doing together. I'm excited more for the spirituality titles, I will be honest, and a part of me was just thinking about just this fear of how I'm going to be perceived, especially by I'd say the typical religious Christian community, because I don't think these are titles that would particularly align with Christianity, just thinking of the genre that they're in, because I haven't read them, but I'm looking forward to reading them for myself, for my mind, and just for me to get to a place of understanding their teachings. Not that I'm converting or anything like that, but just to get an understanding for myself. And it's silly that I have to explain myself, but yeah, I think I should though, because I know that there are different people who would probably be watching this video at any point in time. So just to explain in advance, yeah? So chapter 14, I'm just going to move on. And remember to go back to chapter 13 to do the reflective questions for yourself, yeah? So chapter 14 is on the sixth sense, and I feel like what I just shared was a bit vulnerable, just like what he shares in chapter 14, because he shares how he only had the courage to actually share about this particular thing now in the book, but he knew that people would perceive him a certain way. So what he shares in this chapter is like he has a board of people in his imagination. Jesus is also part of that board, but great minds and great thinkers of our time, he has them in the board, and he'd convene a meeting in his mind to tap into their wisdom. But outside of that, he also shared that he did countless research on their lives to understand them individually. So I can imagine that when he sits and has these conversations with Jesus, with your Tom Fords and them, he's tapping into really what he's been reading, right? Similarly to us, when we're reading the Bible, you're tapping into the Word of God in terms of what God is saying to you. Anyways, I'm going to read the summary in your hearing. Chapter 14. This chapter describes the sixth sense as the highest and most redefined form of mental and spiritual activity. Hill calls it the door to the temple of wisdom, explaining that it is the subtle, inner faculty through which ideas, warnings, flashes of intuition, and moments of inspiration flow. The sixth sense cannot be forced. It awakens gradually as a result of mastering early principles, which are desire, faith, specialized knowledge, imagination, autosuggestion, and emotional control. Once activated, it becomes a reliable inner guide that nudges, directs, and illuminates our path. Hill suggests that the greatest leaders, creators, and innovators throughout history relied on this intuitive channel, trusting the quiet inner voice that reveals solutions long before logic can explain them. So the idea is that everything they've known, you have access to, and you can tap into if you channel all those areas that he's noted in terms of autosuggestion, imagination, and. But ultimately, this will come through practice. And also, I feel from reading as well, reading from stories about these particular people that you're trying to emulate. So chapter 15, how to outwit the six ghosts of fear. Hill concludes the book by identifying 6 psychological forces: the fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of ill health, fear of loss of love, fear of old age, and fear of death, that silently sabotage ambition and block the flow of creative thought. He explains how these fears operate in subtle ways, planting seeds of doubt, indecision, and procrastination that weaken the desire and destroy faith. This chapter calls for a deep and honest self-examination. He urges readers to confront the origin of their fears, question their beliefs that sustain them, and replace them with thoughts rooted in courage and clarity. He also emphasizes that fear thrives in a mind that is idle, undisciplined, or spiritually disconnected. By consciously replacing fear with purpose, gratitude, and decisive action, individuals free themselves from mental chains and open the way for sustained success. End of chapter 15. And personally, as a personal reflection, I think I'm terrified of creating for TikTok because I haven't figured it out. I feel like TikTok is a platform for just fun content. I don't know why. Although there is motivational content there, and there's a bit of imposter syndrome in terms of me being able to create for the platform, even to the point where I'm considering stopping completely. But I'm not, because consistency and the vision in terms of what this book has inspired as well. But I think in closing, and thinking about Think and Grow Rich, what I've decided is that I'm going to come back to this audio 10 hours and listen to it every year, right? That's 2 hours every day in a week, you're done. So every single year, I'm going to come back to this audio clip, listen to it, think about what it is I want, press into planning, auto-suggesting, imagining, having and building faith for those particular things that I want for the year. Even come 2026, we're coming back again. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video to the very end. I'm just going to go into the closing clip and be done, because I think my son is going to be waking up soon. He's in our bedroom, not in the nursery today, as you can notice, the freedom. Today was a bit wonky. I haven't eaten my porridge, and the time is 1:30. I think I'm just gonna eat it and then have normal food because of the long night we've had. It's just a messy day. But I'm glad that I was able to come on here to record today's episode and share my excitement about what we will be doing for the next 52 weeks. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video to the very end, and see you next Monday. It's goodbye from me. Au revoir.
All that I wanted from you was something that I never had of. Hey, something that you